Hello and welcome into another episode of the Jefferson Mad Drinks Fantasy Podcast, the pod on a mission to normalise 18 leagues. I am Pete McManus. I'm your host in his Colts jumper, back on the bus, and I'm happy to be joined by both Ian Harrison and Alan Monk. Good day, boys. How are you?
Yeah, good day. So is that you saying that you're sticking with him now?
There's just no other option. So I'll have my pet. I'm sure as we go across the summer and I start talking about players, I'll have my pet players, I'll have my pet teams, which based on one best ball draft so far are looking very much like the same players I was high on last year that let me down. But that aside, it's Colts all the way in it, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
We're starting to five videos with Dan Jones and Anthony Richardson though, so you got to fall back in love at some point.
No, I do think we would. Let's not make this about the Colts. I do think we will stand more of a chance with Daniel Jones. I'm kind of out on Richardson. I'm all for giving him another chance, but I think he needs to sit the first half of the season and maybe sort of work his way back into the team as opposed to just being given every opportunity he gets. So, but we will get to the Colts today because we are going to use this episode to talk about the AFC. We're going to go 15 minutes on each division, and rather than just going through, oh, these are the people that we picked, and what do you think of this player post draft? Because H has already been through all the players in detail. So if you want to listen to our review of each player, go back to the last episode. But this is our first episode since the draft, so we thought we'd go around the AFC on this episode, and then we'll do a separate one on the NFC, talking each division. Before I do that, before we get started on the first 15 minutes of the AFC North, did you enjoy the draft? We've not really caught up since. What did you think?
I personally didn't see that much of it. In fact, I don't think I saw any of it live because I was working. So I didn't get to see any of it, which was, and to be honest, I don't even feel like I've missed much. Like going through the drafts and who took who, I'm like, I don't feel like I missed that much, to be honest.
I think the NFL do a very good job of bigging up all of these like little events through the year. Like they're currently in the build up to the schedule being released, and they do a really good job of getting people excited. And then when it's here, you're kind of like, well, it's just a schedule, isn't it? it's just so. And the thing with it, but you do beforehand because you haven't got it. You're like, give me the schedule, and then you get it, and you're like, oh yeah. No. I knew we were playing all of these teams, just didn't know in which order, and it's still 4 months away. So what does it matter? So, but I suppose it does help with bye weeks. Your favourite thing?
Yeah, it does help me plan for bye weeks. Yeah.
I do enjoy the Tennessee's schedule release though when we go down the main strip of Tennessee asking them what's this team. They were good fun, those ones.
The teams do a good job. The teams do a good job of it now, to be fair. Right, should we get started on the AFC North?
Let's do it, yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, so let me just set a bit of a timer for myself because otherwise we'll just run on forever because I know what we're like. But before we do that, I've decided to set this up with I've got a little bit of a question about each division to kick us off, and then we'll just see where it takes us. So on the AFC North, my question is, are the Browns completely clueless?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I think
what was that all about? We're not going to take him. We're not going to take him. We're not going to take him. We're going to take someone else. We're not going to take him. Oh, go on then. We'll take him. I'm like, what is that all about?
It also doesn't make sense. Double dipped on running backs when I think they've got a couple of running backs already on the roster, haven't they? And then they've gone and I 100% agree with the Judkins pickup, but they've got Jerome Ford, Judkins, Dylan Sampson, and Pierre Strong now. I mean, Strong isn't going to do much, but the Jerome Ford showed a bit. He's not great, so they did need an upgrade. But I just didn't understand their draft at all. Like, they've now got 5 quarterbacks on the roster. Granted, it looks like Deshaun's sitting the year out, but it's just a bit of a horror show, really, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
And then we haven't top it all to go out and pick up Deontay Johnson as well, which he seems like the Browns.
That was mainly where my point came from because I thought the Sanders stuff was bad enough, but how, I mean, Deontay Johnson was on 4 different teams last year, so how you can think he's a good guy to have in your locker room is beyond me.
I know, it's mental. It's mental. And he only needs to play for the Bengals now to complete the AFC North.
Yeah.
It's collecting teams like Infinity Stones.
It's a long season. It only takes one injury to T. Higgins, and
God, if we
suddenly
end up with him in the Bengals, oh my God.
Yeah, we've not really had a chance to talk about this, but my take on the Shedeur Sanders thing is that I feel a little bit sorry for him. And
Nope.
I'm gonna make this very quick. In that, all that's really happened is he's had everybody around him bigging him up, including his dad. And we've all got kids. That is our job as a dad, is to big him up and give him every opportunity that he could possibly ask. Like that is your one of your roles as a parent. If you had the same opportunity that he had, you would do the same for your kids. And you want all of these players to be confident and coming through and everything else. The only thing that he's done wrong, and it's not really his fault, is he's gone a bit blingy with it, but that's because his family's got money. Like if he grew up on a farm in Utah, he wouldn't have the money to be able to annoy people in the same way he has annoyed people. He just wouldn't have the same background. It's just, I feel a bit sorry for him.
I agree about feeling sorry for him, but my take is there's certain things he's done that hasn't helped himself. So like there's a difference between being like believing in yourself and being cocky, and I think his cocky attitude is probably like what people don't want. His interviews weren't, so his combine interview wasn't great. There's a rumor come out that he went to the Giants interview unprepared, didn't know what he was talking about, and things like that. And I think yes, you may have the talent, and the one thing that really annoyed me about the draft is after every draft pick, it was, oh, well, that's not Sanders. And I'm like, why would the Bengals be looking at Shedeur Sanders? They've got Joe Burrow. Like, why would the Ravens be looking at him? Like, they've got Lamar. Like, just stop with the narrative. Like, move on. He'll get picked when he gets picked. Like, I think the NFL and the two streams that were going. I think there's one with ESPN and one with whoever else the other one is. They ruined so many kids' opportunity to see their name go up there by just going on about it. Nobody talks about Cam Ward. Not one person went, "This is a great pick." It was all, "Oh, well, it's not Shedeur," and it's like it feels like the whole thing revolved around him. And I mean, it's continuing now with this pod, but it's I just feel
that's not his fault. That's
no,
not
it's not.
In the same way that everyone was like, "Oh, he's dropping." I was like, "He's not dropped. He's not dropped. It's not like we did a draft yesterday and he went in the first round, and we've done a draft today and he's going in the 5th round. He's only in the 1st round because everybody in the media said that that's what was going to happen, and then they kept saying it was going to happen. So that's where I feel a bit sorry for him. But it's been talked about. So unless you want to add anything, Ian, because you've not said anything.
No, I mean I get that you feel sorry for him, but like, you know, some things you can control, some things you can't. You can't control what the media says about him, and if the media want to pick him up, then you know they're more than welcome to do so. You know, people like Mel Kiper are still bumming him for whatever reason. I don't get it. Mel Kiper's an idiot. He's a massive idiot. But then, like, there are things he can control, like his own attitude and his approach to the game. And he was refusing to do stuff at the combine. He was refusing to meet with teams. He was turning up to meetings completely unprepared. The Giants gave him an install package loaded with errors, and he didn't pick up any of the errors. Like, he was just walking into interviews expecting to just be handed a job. And, like, he thought he'd done all the hard work in college. And if it weren't for the media, people wouldn't be talking about him anyway, because he wasn't that good in college. He was okay.
He was good enough. He was good enough for all the people who do mock drafts to mock him to go in the 1st round.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But then he's turned up post college, and his attitude is terrible, and that's why he's dropped to the 5th round.
My only
can control that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Agree with you completely. My only problem with it is that I suppose it's my problem with the process as opposed to him specifically. My problem is that everybody's mocked him to be in the 1st, and all it proves is that all these people who are doing the mock drafts and are supposed to be in the know, they didn't have those conversations with the Giants about what he was like behind All of that stuff came out afterwards, and I was like,
Yeah.
and I haven't heard Daniel Jeremiah or anybody go, well, I got that wrong. And I think there should be a little bit more of a, you're building these kids' hopes up, telling them they're going to be like first rounders. There was people there who'd made the trip, like Jalen Milrow and people like that, who'd made the trip because they thought somebody had told them they were going to be a first rounder, and then they have to sit in that room all night and not get picked for another 24 hours. It's like there should be a little bit of a, and I know they're all realizing their dream in the end, but there should be a little bit more from the media to kind of go, yeah, we got that wrong, we apologize, whatever. Anyway, that's half the time we spent on the Browns.
Can I bring this on? Are the Steelers not going to make a winning record this year because they still have no quarterback?
Yeah, they do. They got Will Howard. They got Will Howard.
They will go 9-8 because that's what the Steelers do. So that's the Steelers done and dusted. What about the Bengals, Ian? You happy with? You happy with?
Oh, come on. There's a little bit more with the Steelers, but go on. Go to the Bengals.
I mean, it was a bit of a. I mean, for fantasy purposes, there's nothing really of relevance to discuss with the Bengals. The only person worth talking about maybe is Taj Brooks. He's only got to beat Zach Moss and Samaje Perine to be RB2 behind Chase Brown. I think what surprised me was that we didn't take a wide receiver at all because, you know, Jermaine Burton has had a load of off-field antics. Well, yeah, but we need someone for cheap, don't we? So we spent all of our money on wide receiver. We're going to need someone cheaper. But I thought we'd be cutting Jermaine Burton because he's been an absolute nightmare off the field all last season and since the season ended. And the fact that we didn't draft another wide receiver or pick anyone up in free agency means that it looks like we're going to give him another chance.
Yeah, but is there not maybe a conversation that's been had with him about it? Like, I understand what you're saying. But it just feels like if you're not going to draft someone your first 5 wide receivers are right up there with the best, really, aren't they? Just purely because of the Chase Higgins combo at 1-2. But Yoshibash has been reliable. Charlie Jones, when fit's been okay, especially on special teams as well.
Yeah, Charlie Jones is really essentially just exclusively special teams. So there's a spot for Jermaine Burton to be wide receiver 4 there. I just thought that we'd send a message and bin him off.
Seems a bit harsh, but Tyrus Brooks could very easily get pass catching reps as well for you. But
I
was quite impressed with the Bengals. Their draft this year. I was quite critical of them the other day, and I mean, if you can sort Trey Hendrickson's deal out as well, it looks on paper far better than it has been defensively for a few years.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's no rush to sort out Trey Hendrickson. You know, he's got a year left on his contract, and then if we want to, we can tag him the year after. So we've got essentially 2 years to deal with Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, and then you picked up Demetrius Knight, who's not. I quite like him as the Mike linebacker, who's going to be Jermaine Pratt's probably replacement. By the sound of it, he looks like essentially on the way out. So yeah, it's quite an impressive draft, that one for me.
I like the fact that you tried to fix the problems you've got. Like, one of the things that frustrates me about the draft is that everyone just comes out of it and every team is going to be better. And I'm like, that's not true, is it? So like, every team isn't going to be better. But there was teams like you and the 49ers, one of these, and there was a few other teams where it's like we had glaring problems. Texans, we'll get to the Texans as well, and their O-line is like there's glaring issues, and you've tried to address them. And I'm like, you could have just gone and we talked about drafting another running back. It's like, why would you draft another running back when you've got Chase Brown and you've got glaring issues over here? It's like, just trust that Burrow, Brown, Gesicki, Chase, and T can get it done, and go and try and fix the other side of the ball. Because if that's a top half defense, you make the playoffs based on the offense last year. One thing I would say from a fantasy point of view is, on first view, and I've done a couple of best balls on first view, T Higgins is going to end up in absolutely none of my teams because he's going way too high. Way too high.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Back of the second round, 22nd, 23rd pick overall. I'm like, no. Not
too high.
Yeah. As the second wide receiver on the team. Was there something else you wanted to say on the Steelers, H? Before I moved on.
No, sorry. It was just the pickup of the running back. I really like Caleb Johnson. I like his landing spot there. I think he's potentially going to be a solid pickup in kind of your redrafts. There's a strong possibility he's RB1 there. So I quite like that one.
I'm surprised they
I
didn't go
don't
for a
think
quarterback.
I'm surprised they didn't. Yeah. But when somebody like a Will Howard drops, it's worth a gamble because like I mentioned on the last pod, he literally just won the national championship, so he has a bit of caliber about him. Obviously threw it some incredible wide receivers at Ohio State, but he's a good player, and you know he as it stands, he's in a battle with Mason Rudolph for the QB1 role this year, and it looks like the Steelers have put all their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket, and hope he turns out for them. But
Car crash incoming.
yeah,
I mean,
What's annoying with the Steelers is though it's going to be a 9-8 car crash, which isn't quite as fun as the car crash that I know Ian wants and a few of us do.
and then lastly, the Ravens. I don't think the Ravens picked up anyone noteworthy for.
We need to take a moment to talk about my boy Brandon Aubrey sitting on his throne as the undisputed king of kickers now that Justin Tucker is no more.
yeah, well, Tyler Loop's walked straight into a starting job, hasn't he?
Yeah.
For the Ravens, so he's landed on his feet.
That story, so for those who don't know, Justin Tucker's been released by the Ravens for footballing reasons. Nothing to do with to do with the 16 women who accused him of being inappropriate. So I was like, that's an absolutely brilliant story and my favourite of the week, easily. So.
Yeah, but I do think the Ravens, the wide receiver they drafted, Wester, is it LeJontay Wester, in the sixth round? I think after Zay Flowers, there's not really much for him to beat. I think these with Devontae Walker and Rashad Bateman and a D-Hop that looks 50 years old. I think Wester, I know he's a 6th round pick, but he's got a shot.
Yeah, well, I had the same thought with Walker last year, and it just didn't pan out. So I don't know. I think the Ravens are kind of keen on their tight ends getting a lot of reps. So Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, they're the big targets alongside Zay. And then when you've got the rushing ability that they've got, I think it's one of them.
Yeah, I'm still not ready to talk. I'm still not ready to talk about Mark Andrews.
All right, let's move it on then.
Didn't they draft somebody who dropped in? I can't remember who it was. I should have wrote this down. I'm sure the Ravens picked up someone who dropped because he had suspect personal issues off the field.
Yeah, that's
some teams. It's like the Ravens and the Chiefs. Everybody else goes, I'm not sure about him, and the Ravens and Chiefs go, come on in, lad. We've got you.
So the lad that it was the guy that I projected to go 10 to the Bears, but I didn't realise he had the off-field issues. So it's Mike Green, the edge rusher. I had him going 10 to the Bears in my mock draft. But like I said, I didn't realise and this is why like just watching a bit of film is different to meeting players and getting to know their personalities and things like that. But yeah, he's a good player. Like he's a QB hunter, but apparently he's had issues around. Yeah,
I just love the idea that they went, don't worry, Mike, we're getting rid of Justin, so you can be our new guy.
We've still got Roquan Smith there, who's not exactly clean as roses as well, is he? So
right, that's the end of that.
Yeah.
Right. As we are sticking to the standard never eat shredded wheat rotation of the divisions, that takes us to the AFC East. So to kick us off, have the Patriots done enough to make them competitive or at least watchable in 2025?
I think the answer is yes to both.
I do. I like what they've done.
I mean, it's a tough division to be competitive in, with the Dolphins and the Bills, and obviously the Jets being the Jets. I think it's a tougher division than others for the Patriots to be competitive in, but I think they have improved, and I think they will be a better watch as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just a little thing. So, for instance, the pickup of Will Campbell, the left tackle, you get a franchise left tackle to go with your franchise quarterback. You look to protect him. That then opens the door for. So they picked up Trevion Henderson, who I thoroughly like. I think he's an excellent player. He's going to really challenge Stevenson. And then I really like Kyle Williams, the wide receiver that they picked up. So I agree with you, Ian. I think it's a good draft.
My brother was texting me during the draft, and in the league that we're all in together, he's got Drake May, and he was like, "Oh, I like that signing. Protect my boy Drake May." And then Will Campbell got on stage and started crying during the interview, and he texted me back and went, "Yeah, get rid of him straight away. I don't want my library crying." He's like, just changed his opinion straight away. I was like, no,
Did you
not
see
having
what
any
he
of that.
said? He was like, "I'm going to fight till the death. No one's touching Drake." I was like, "Yeah, that's what you want to hear."
That is
But
what you want to hear.
no.
You just don't want him to cry while he's doing it. It's like, come on, man, help a little. I'm probably not allowed to say anymore. I think, is Ramondre Stevenson done then, do we think? Or at least by the middle of this season, are we going to never see Ramondre Stevenson again? Because he wasn't good last year.
Yeah, I'm not sure about him being done. I think because Trevion Henderson, he split reps in the backfield at OSU last year. I think it's very much reduced workload for Ramondre Stevenson. I think it'd be 50-50. I think his fantasy relevance is completely gone.
I think with the Trevion Henderson pick, and like you said, the Judkins, he did share with Judkins last year. I think the previous years of Ohio State though show that he's a 3-down back where he didn't have Judkins, and he has proven it. So I think Henderson is probably going to take the reins a lot more than 50%. I just don't see. I see Stevenson still having a really positive role. I think he could be a very valuable RB2, and if there is a potential niggle at any point with Henderson, they can just rely on Stevenson to fumble it. So,
yeah, well, that's kind of you just had. I mean, I had far too many shares of Ramondre Stevenson last year because he'd given him a new contract. He wasn't going that high in drafts, and I was like, he is the one. But if you keep coughing up the ball, eventually you are not going to be the one, are you?
No, but I think because the Patriots have strengthened their O-line, haven't they, in this draft as well? They took 3 linemen, 2 tackles, and an interior.
Yeah.
So I think that is, give Ramondre a bit more protection, trying to open up some better running lanes for him. And obviously that works out for Trevion Henderson as well. But
they should be interested.
The Patriots are moving on, aren't they?
They should be interesting. I trust the coaching a little bit more now. There's just not a lot. There's other than Henderson and then maybe Stevenson late in the draft, and you might throw a dart at Diggs late in a best ball or whatever. There's not a lot there that you want to draft from a fantasy point of view, is there? It doesn't give me a lot of hope for Drake May.
But it's very similar to what Vrabel did in Tennessee, where he was, let's run the ball first and then we can, because I mean, all right, they had AJ Brown there, but he was very much a run heavy offense. It was, let's hand it off to Derrick Henry and run him into the ground, and that's what they did. And they were successful doing that, and I think that's something that Vrabel's going to bring in. And then I quite like Kyle Williams. I know he's probably our wide receiver, probably 3-4 there. But by the end of the season, you could see him moving up.
If you think he's good, he's got to be better than the 4th wide receiver on that team. I'm not even sure I can name 3 wide receivers on that team.
You got Stephon Diggs. He's going to be.
Don't rate him anymore. He's done.
He's wide receiver 1. You got Demario Douglas.
Kendrick Bourne.
Towards the end, Kendrick Bourne. Towards the end of the season, you had Kayshon Boutte. Got a few.
If he can't beat out all these players, he's not very good.
And Matt Collins as well. Matt Collins yeah.
He's in
But
West shoes.
on the unofficial depth chart, he's down as wide receiver 2. But yeah, I think he's a good player, and I think he'll be
Yeah.
the deep threat, and Diggs will be underneath.
I've never seen him play, and I would put him in as the wide receiver 2 as well. So
Cheers, man.
I have seen the rest of them play. Were we
Go on, let's
surprised
move it on.
were we surprised the Bills didn't take another wideout?
Massively.
Do
I'm
you think there's an
massively
element
surprised.
do you think there's an element with the Bills where they're a bit like they've tried it, and now like they brought in Amari Cooper last year, they drafted Keon Coleman. Do you think they've just kind of gone, well, it didn't work. We don't need one wide receiver. Let's just bring in some other pieces. So I don't know.
I think there's more of a surprise they didn't take a running back for me because of the James Cook situation. The wide
Paying.
receivers, Coleman, they've picked up Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, Josh Palmer. Not worst out.
I mean, none of them scream quality, do they?
No, they're not, and I wouldn't be selecting any of them massive or like being overly keen on any of them. But I mean, nothing more show signs at times.
What you've just read there sounds like when you're in the 25th round of the JTT Cup. Shout out to the JTT Cup guys, and you're like, I could maybe do with another wide receiver, and that's what you're looking at, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
At that point, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just think
the Bills
also had a lot.
bring Amari Cooper back. Like Amari Cooper's still available. Keenan Allen's still not got a job.
Yeah.
So there's two receivers there that the Bills could go straight back to that would instantly make their receiving room 10 times better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think and they had quite a lot of holes that they needed to address on defense as well. So I understand some of the draft picks more. But it wasn't, the wide receiver was a bit of a surprise, but we'll see what they do. They could pick up Amari Cooper. They could pick up somebody else. They could pick up J.K. Dobbins, and all of a sudden it looks a little bit better.
Do you know what? The Bills and the Ravens are very similar to me in that they've been very close over the last few years. The Bills more than the Ravens, but they've both put together good seasons where they haven't got to a Super Bowl. And all right, the Chiefs have been dominant, and if they'd been around at a different time and all that sort of stuff. But it kind of feels like from the outside they get to the off season and they're like, right, you really want them to make a big splash or do something where you go, that's going to push you over the edge. And they don't really. They add little bits here and there, and it's almost as if like we're going. I don't know. Maybe it's sometimes I think that's the hardest piece to add. It's the hardest piece is getting you from second place or third place to the number one team in that conference, and they just don't seem. Neither of them seem to know how to get past whether it's each other or the Chiefs or whoever else is fighting from the AFC.
I think also with that though, if you look at kind of you're not going to get one of the top players at 30, 29. I think that's like we keep saying, they're probably a wide receiver short. They rolled the dice last year and it didn't work. And I know that they traded back a couple of times and picked up a few other draft picks last year, but it didn't work. Like they thought Keon Coleman was going to be the one. They were happy to draft him where they did.
He might push on, to be fair.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. It just seems like they've tried, but it's just not worked yet. Sorry, you.
Well, I think the Bills' issue really, I think it's more they've just not had the luck.
Yeah, but if you keep
both times have been knocked out of the playoffs. Like they got knocked out of the playoffs because they didn't win the toss, and they didn't even get a chance to win the game, and they didn't get first down. It was definitely a first down, and the rest missed it. And they've also not had the rub of the green that seems like.
Yeah.
The Chiefs get the rub of the green, or they had the rub of the green, which is fair enough. The good teams get the luck, but. I think the Bills' issue hasn't really been personnel because they could have won those games had they have had a bit of luck.
Yeah, I can agree on that.
Jets, Dolphins, anything to add? We've got to talk about the Dolphins. We've got Dolphins fans listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's do the Jets first then.
I liked what the Dolphins did. There's a few really good pickups that I quite like. Grant was one of them. They strengthened the O line in the second round with Saviana, who's going to probably play guard. He can play across the line, so they're trying to get to a bit more protection. There wasn't really. This is another team where I would have gone picking up a wide receiver in the third, fourth round would have been something that I would
Jalen
maybe
Waddle.
would.
They don't need anybody. They've got Jalen Waddle.
They've got Hill, they've got Waddle, they've got Westbrook Akine. Like,
Yeah.
I just think they could have done with a wide receiver there. And then they did add a little bit of QB depth with Quinn Ewers, who for me is probably a steal to be your backup QB in the seventh round, because he was a good college quarterback. But whether that transfers is a different story.
If I was the Dolphins, I don't know how many picks they had, but I would have used them all on O linemen and just I'd be tempted to play 7 or 8 O linemen and just Waddle on one side and Hill on the other and just go for it. Just go for it that way. Just keep Tua in one piece.
Yeah.
So that's got to be the strategy.
Well, it will be interesting to see who gets the QB2 job, because Zach Wilson's there as well. So
yeah.
I don't think it's nailed on that Quinn Ewers gets the backup role.
No, it's not. It's not. But if you're going to potentially drop one of them, you're going to take the cheaper option of a 7th round draft pick, and then you're going to chuck Zach Wilson on your practice squad and elevate him when required. And one of them is going to be the emergency third quarterback. And to be fair to Ewers, he's not got two bad quarterbacks to learn from, really. Like Tua's been impressive at times, and Zach Wilson's got the experience of falling off and things like that. So it's not a bad QB room to fall into, really.
Yeah, MILF Hunter, Zach Wilson.
MILF Hunter, Zach Wilson, just hanging around the country clubs of Miami. That's why he's going to be QB3, because he's never going to be at practice. Where's that gone? I don't know. I saw him with Quinn Ewers' mum.
I'm moving on. Are we going to quickly wrap up the Jets? Any nice moves that you've seen with the Jets?
I do like the Mason Taylor tight end. They picked him in the second round, because he's walking pretty much straight into a starting role there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that one.
Justin Fields getting another shot.
They showed a lot of faith.
He could spam his tight end.
They showed a lot of faith in Justin Fields by not picking another quarterback. So,
yes, true, very true.
This is another team, though, where you look at the wide receivers and gone, you should have drafted a wide receiver.
Yeah, possibly.
Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, Xavier Gibson, and Malachi Corley.
They took a wide receiver in the fourth. They took Arian Smith, didn't they?
Yeah, Arian Smith, he, according to this, is 7th. That's the kid out of Georgia. I just think they should. I think they could have made a better move there. But I'd like the pickup of Membu, the right tackle. That was an area of need. I think Justin Fields is going to be interesting this year. I like Justin Fields landing there, and I think him and Garrett Wilson's connection that they've had makes him intriguing, and like Ian said, Mason Taylor makes it quite interesting as well.
Justin Fields is a really interesting one. I like that, because he got the chance last year, didn't really blow it, and then was kicked out of the team. And you're like, well, not kicked out, but he was replaced by Russell Wilson, and you're a bit like, I don't know. If I was him, I'd be a bit like, give me another go. So,
yeah, I'm happy for Fields getting another chance. But this is it now. This is last chance.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't do it at the Jets now, I think he is finished. He's not going to get another contract as a starter anyway.
It's not finished. He's only 27.
Gotta love that.
The best division in football, the AFC South. So my question for you, is Tyler Warren the new Titan 1 in Dynasty Fantasy Football?
Oh man,
is it even worth debating, really?
You brought the stat up the other week. When was the last time you had a 1,000-yard tight end or 500 yard tight end?
I think we were in Boston at the time. So
yeah, 2017. I reckon.
I like that pick. It's just a bit sort of. I like Tyler. I've not watched a lot. I don't sit and watch college football, so I just watch highlights and go back and watch players. And obviously, I've watched a bit of Tyler Warren. To be fair, I had watched a bit before the draft because I knew there was a chance the Colts would pick him. And I was surprised. We'll get onto the Bears on another episode because they're not in this conference. But I was surprised they took Loveland at 10. But
yeah,
the problem with Warren is it's just not sure that anybody can throw the ball far enough and accurately enough to get it to him.
Yeah, I mentioned him on the last pod. He is somebody that I genuinely thoroughly enjoyed watching. I thought if he fell to the Colts, I don't think the Colts were going to pass up on him. It's a great pick. I absolutely love the pick. So yeah, I think they've given whatever quarterback starts for you a decent target. So it'll be interesting.
I do like what the Colts did by taking a QB in the 6th, just in case.
Just in case. I think
who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
I think he's a perfect example of why Daniel Jones gives us. Oh, I can't believe I'm even saying this. Daniel Jones gives us more chance of winning than Anthony Richardson does, at least at the start of the year, and because Daniel Jones could lock in on him and go, right, you're my safety blanket, or you're the one who's going to keep moving the chains. We'll let Jonathan Taylor run it 2 out of every 3 downs, and then I'll throw it to you at some point. And Pittman and Josh Downs and Alec Pierce will just run around in the distance, never to actually be seen on camera. But the two of them, before this, there was only one Colt I was drafting, especially in redraft, and that was Jonathan Taylor. And I think I can get on board with Tyler Warren as a late tight end shout, depending on where he's going when we get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I quite like it. To be honest, the DJ Giddens pick is quite a nice pick as well. I think he's a nice complementary back. I think the Colts had a really good.
That backup job is up for grabs. I think we talked about on one of our WhatsApp chats. It's Khalil Herbert who, the Bengals brought in, and I think he played 1 snap.
Fumbled it.
That was fumbled it. That was the end of Khalil Herbert. So
one snap, fumble, sit your ass down.
Again, he's on his 3rd or 4th team, isn't he? So it's if you can't beat out him, you're not really an NFL player. So hopefully,
no. But I do like Khalil Herbert though. I think he is a good player, or he can be a good player. Obviously, he didn't have the best showing for us, but he was at the same time where Chase Brown just exploded. So I did feel for him, and Chase Brown was like, just give me the ball. Forget everyone else, just give me the ball. I don't need a backup running back. And Khalil Herbert suffered for that. But I think he is a good backup. Yeah. I think it'd be tough to get past him.
Maybe.
I agree with you.
You said at the start, H, that nobody said anything about Cam Ward. So here's your chance to say something else about Cam Ward.
Who's this Cam Ward guy?
I think he went to the Texans.
So he's QB1, obviously. He goes there. I just think he's a really good player. When you watch him, he's got that little bit of something about him which makes you interested in watching him. Granted, I don't think he's going to be a top 16 QB in any redraft ADP this year. But he may be somebody that you end up sort of waiver wire later on in the season, especially if it can develop nicely. And then on top of that, they've added a few nice little pieces to kind of help him, I guess, settle in. So they picked up the lad's name that I butchered last week, which is Alec Amania. They picked up.
That's 2 weeks running. 2 weeks running. You've butchered it now. Then.
They picked up Shamir Dan, the wide receiver, and then they also picked up the Xavier Respiro, which was one of Cam Ward's targets at Miami, who went undrafted. And if you remember, I mentioned him last week, where I said like he basically got killed because of running a little bit slow on the 40-meter dash.
On combine, yeah.
Yeah, I like what they've done.
If
I
you
don't
butcher
think it's
someone's
enough.
name and then you come back to it, you're gonna have to get it right the second time.
Ayomana. Alik Ayomana. There you go.
Look forward to him coming. I'm going to find a way to bring him up on the next episode.
every week he's getting brought up. Every week.
Yeah.
Might change the name of the podcast.
The other player that I'd like, or the other two players that I really like to mention with the Titans are defensive players, which is Kevin Winston Jr., the Penn State safety, and Xavier Woods, the Notre Dame safety. Both of them are really good picks, and like I said, I can't fault the Titans draft picks. I think they were excellent. Whether they work out is a different story, but I like a lot of the players that they picked up.
Yeah, but people like the tight end that they picked up. Gunnar Helm. Pete's already a big favorite.
Guy.
Yeah. He's another that they could potentially he could potentially end up as tight end one there, because realistically he's only got to beat out Okonkwo, which is not the biggest world beater in the world. And watching Gunnar Helm last year with Quinn Ewers, he's got reliable hands and he makes big plays, so he could step up in that role.
On the subject of my guys, I was really confident and really looking forward to where they were going, and then to see two of them go to the Giants, one to the Bears and one to the Titans, I was like, well, that was underwhelming. So I don't know what I was hoping for, but it wasn't that. So on Cam Ward, what I would say is I liked the way he came across. No bling, no fancy girlfriend like trying to take the limelight from him. Just turned up with his family. Looks ready for business. I like that for the Titans. So, but did you see and you must have done, you must have seen the or heard of the interview where he was asked who he thought the top 4 wide receivers in the NFL were?
Yeah. Brilliant.
For anyone.
Yeah, but if so that's the thing. Like he must have been told it. Go for it. Like back your boys up and go. Yeah, I'm going to be throwing them the ball. I want them on side. I like it.
So for anyone who hasn't seen, I'm guessing most people who listen to this podcast will, but for anyone who hasn't seen it, Cam Ward was asked this was before the draft, who his top 4 wide receivers in the NFL were. He named Calvin Ridley, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Treylon Burks as the top 4 wide receivers.
What a guy.
Absolutely brilliant.
What a guy.
I feel like he might have been trolling someone. Right, we've got to talk Texans. One of the things I like about the Texans, and I've already mentioned this briefly about the draft, is everyone comes out of we all come out of the draft and go, well, they've sorted that or they've improved that. We've already talked about the Bengals defense. What I like about the Bengals defense and the Texans O-line, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I mean this in the positive way that I'm trying to bring it across, is that they were that bad that the moves you've made have got like a 90% chance of coming off, because it's like the only direction is up with them. And there's a lot's been said about you let certain players go and everything else. I was like, but they've got to be better because they can't really be much worse.
So on that, right, they made it clear very early at the end of last season that they thought the coaching was a huge problem. So they got rid of the offensive coordinator, who has no run game experience. He was only pass game experience. They got rid of the offensive line coordinator and promoted the assistant, who is who was on the Patriots coaching staff previously, which is also where Nick Caley originates from before he went to the Rams, before now becoming the Texans OC. What they've basically gone out and said is, like, there was issues in that room. The rumors are there was a lot of disgruntled people in there, and they've got rid of them. So Shaq Mason's gone, Laramie Tunsil's gone, and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. But they've got rid of 3 starters on that line last year, and they've basically said, right, Tunsil was the highest paid left tackle twice over. You've got to be better than that. I mean, I don't mind it. They've looking at the row line room. There's probably 15, 16 players on there at the minute, and they're just going to have a camp battle. But the left tackle that we picked up, Ursary from Minnesota, is a solid left tackle. I think he gave up 1 sack all year, and that was Abdul Carter, which he went 3rd overall pick. Like he's a solid player, so I'm okay with it. I trust D'Amico Ryans more than I trusted ROC from last year, who landed. I think he's gone back to the Dolphins now. So, but yeah, no, and
all these people
they made one. Yeah.
If I was as bad as some of these people were and got sacked from my job, I would not walk straight into another job, doing exactly the same thing, getting paid somewhere else by a competitor. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Ian,
well, we only
one.
I think, with the Texans, no one can ever say that, we're not giving CJ Stroud the weapons, because this draft is taking 2 receivers, a running back, a tight end. They are just filling that running back, the wide receiver room with weapons for CJ Stroud. So, that O-line had best stand up and give him time to throw it.
You say that, but so we lose Diggs, we lose Tank Dell's done for the year.
Let's be honest. Stephon Diggs was no loss. Stephon Diggs was no loss.
I disagree. The first 8 games of the season, he was excellent for us. The ACL, when he went down, there was a dramatic drop off. After the first 7 weeks.
What, in his production? I would imagine so.
Well,
he was mint on Madden.
On the first 7 weeks, he got a ridiculous amount of yards. CJ Stroud was leading the passing yards. Nico Collins was the leading receiver before he went down with injury. Like we were playing well last year, and Stephon Diggs was a huge part of that. So I disagree with that, but it's because I watched him.
Just under 500 yards in 8 games. So
yeah,
he's not exactly dropping the all.
Yeah, but when he's wide receiver 2, that's not bad stats after 8 games.
It's not irreplaceable though. It should be easily replaceable.
Yeah, and that's what they've done.
Okay. We shall see.
Hopefully.
How many wins? How many wins do you reckon this year? 6? 7? You just gonna ignore me.
Yeah. Let's do the Jags quickly. We're running out of time.
So the Jags made the top of the draft interesting. So fair play to the Jags and jumping up to 2 and taking Travis Hunter. What, from a fantasy football point of view, I think it's a terrible landing spot. Personally, I think it's awful. From an NFL point of view, I think that's the perfect team to go to. Like he's going in there, he's not expected to be the number 1 wide receiver in the room, so he wants to play both sides of the ball, and I think this allows him to play both sides of the ball because they've got Brian Thomas and he is the number 1, and that's probably undisputed unless Travis Hunter really rips it up. And I think that allows him to go in there. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that allows him to go in there and play a bit of both and help out where they need him to help out.
Yeah, I saw someone make the point that the Jags have only picked him because it means they got someone that can tackle on offense when Trevor Lawrence coughs it up.
This is his year. This is Trevor Lawrence's year. He's another one. I mean, you mentioned Stroud, Ian. I think there's 3 or 4 quarterbacks. We'll get to Caleb Williams on another episode. Trevor Lawrence is another one where it's like, there's no excuses this year. Like, there's no reason why you can't go out. If you've got Travis Hunter on one side and Brian Thomas on the other, you've got to go and get the job done.
Yeah. And you've got Gabe Davis, don't forget. Fantasy hero Gabe Davis.
Yeah, let's forget all about
that. But they have redesignated Louis Rees-Zammit is now listed as a receiver.
For the Jags.
How
I don't think the Bills have ever really recovered from losing Gabe Davis. They might have won that championship game last year. He was a bit of a playoff monster in his day, Gabe Davis. Oh, sorry. That's the end of that.
I can't believe we spent 2 minutes talking about Gabe Davis. But never mind.
About 30 seconds. Trevor Lawrence is going to rip it up. Finally, the AFC West. Is this the year that someone in this division finally rises up to challenge the Chiefs?
Challenge, yes. Beat them, no.
Do you not think?
No, I think the Chiefs are still nailed on for winning that division.
I don't know. I think
maybe not nailed on. Maybe not nailed on. I might have exaggerated there, but I think they will still win the division.
The reason I worded it like that was that whilst I think they will be favourites, and rightly so, I think when we've talked about teams in the past, we talked about the Patriots and their dominance in that division and how that made them dominance in the conference. But there was an element of the division was like milquetoast. They found it easy, and the Chiefs have had that a bit recently with the Raiders not being great. The Broncos haven't been great for a while. The Chargers are unreliable. Whereas this year, it's not just like I like the Chargers. I think I like what they've done, but across the division, you kind of go that's 6 divisional games that are going to cause them problems. And I don't think they've in their Mahomes run. I don't think they've had that before. And we've been here before where everything looks a bit better than it is in preseason and off season. But I trust the Ravens, Broncos, and Chargers a lot more. Raiders, Broncos, and Chargers a lot more than I have done in the past.
I think there's a real tell though in the difference between the 4 teams, and it's something that Ian kind of alluded to, is that you look at what the Chiefs drafted, not one of them's a starter year one. And I think the continuity that the Chiefs have makes them a real, like they will be right up there just purely because of Pat Mahomes and the pieces around him. I think all 3 of these teams are going to be dramatically better though, and I don't see the Chiefs running away with it. I think there's going to be a heck of a challenge coming in from the Broncos, the Chargers. I think the Raiders are probably a year or 2 off, but they've improved massively with Genty. They got Geno Smith come in. Like all of these teams on paper have made dramatic improvements. It's just whether or not they can put the pieces together. I really like Jack Beck, the wide receiver that the Raiders picked up. On top of that, you've got Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, you've got Genty. Like it's a strong room there. And I've just mentioned Ian's boy, so I'll let him carry on now.
No. I've got enough to say about Brock Bowers. Everyone knows.
I feel like if you haven't got a Brock Bowers shirt by the start of the season, like I know you'd never buy anything that wasn't Bengals related, but I feel like if you're ever going to do it, Brock Bowers is the one to turn you away.
Can I get Brock Bowers in the Lions blackout jersey? Is that just too much?
They're weird, but no one's going to pick on. No one's going to even notice in the UK, are they? Let's face it. Until you got the London game, they'll be like, "What's that guy doing?" So
what is he doing?
He must be called Bowers.
Yeah.
Do we like what the Chiefs have done?
Yes and no. Their O-line needed improvement. They picked up a left tackle in Josh Simmons. He can play inside potentially to start. Like there's no players that the Chiefs have picked up that are going to be starters kind of week 1. So we're not. There's no pressure on them. They can learn, they can develop, and then they can come in from there. Whereas if you look at, I'll go to the Chargers quickly. They picked up players that are potentially going to be starting week 1, which is Hampton, Trey Harris. They are going to be game 1, like snap 1 starters, in my opinion. I think
on the Chargers. I think Pete's celebration lap of Najee Harris being a workhorse running back was a bit premature.
Yeah.
Just over very quickly.
He was all in on Najee Harris for 2 weeks.
I traded him.
On the subject of that, I don't know, when you send a trade offer out on Sleeper, do you put a time limit on it?
It depends.
Because I'm going to have to
Depends if I sleep on it and go. No, actually, I'll cancel.
Well, you can set it to expire after a certain amount of time, and I don't do that. I just send it over and expect the person to either accept it or reject it within a couple of days. But I completely forgot I'd sent in one of my leagues. I'd sent a trade offer for Najee Harris, and it was just sat there. And luckily, I noticed last night. Whereas I can't even remember what it was. I wasn't paying an awful lot, but it was a couple of picks, and I was like, I'll take that off the table, because I thought 2 months ago I would have done that. Well, a month ago I would have done that deal. Now I'm not so sure. And I still think there was the thing with the running backs, on all the running backs that got taken high up. He was a perfect example where you kind of go, yes, the Chargers want to run the ball, and yes, that's a great place for him to land in NFL circles. But for fantasy football, it's like they're not going to give Najee Harris that a decent pay to come over for a year and not at least split time, especially at the start of the season. Maybe we get to halfway through and they just can't take Hampton off the field because he's so good. But I do think there's an element of Najee Harris will now be one of those running backs who hasn't got enough in fantasy football to be worth drafting, but he'll do enough to damage Omarion Hampton's, or whatever his name is. Stop.
Yeah. We didn't have a chance to mention him when we talked about the AFC South, but Bashal Tutor, that was one of the worst landing spots he could have gone to with ETN and Bigsby. But the one that did get a good landing spot is RJ Harvey, who went to the Broncos. I think that's a really good landing spot. He has the potential to be RB1 there. There's only Estime and McLaughlin to try and beat out, and we saw that last year. They weren't setting the world alight, so RJ Harvey stands a great chance of being the Broncos starter from day one.
On the Broncos, one of the things they talked about in the draft pick, they went cornerback, I think, in the first round.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was, but it was like the commentary on it was, I love that pick, because it's almost as if they've gone, we have to have the best defense in the league. And last year we were like second or third. So what we're going to do is we're going to get better at that. Rather than going, well, we've got a weakness here and we've got a weakness there. It's like, well, actually what we're going to do is we're going to dominate that side of the ball. And because we've already got 9/10 of those pieces in place, we're going to get the final piece in place. And you are not going to be able to come and play your game at Mile High. It's like, we are going to shut you down. And then we trust our quarterback and the pieces around him, and like you say, they've added the running back, and it was one of those where I was like, oh, I don't really understand that pick. And then the more this guy was talking, I can't remember who it was, so I can't credit him. Not that he's going to listen to the podcast, but I couldn't really, and I sort of bought into it a little bit. I was like, yeah, I like that. I like teams who've got an idea of what they are or what they want to be, and they're like, no, we're going to pick him because he fits in really well.
Yeah, it was JD Barron. He's the bit of a Swiss Army knife, and he'll do well because he's obviously going to be cornerback 2 next to Pat Satan, who was defensive player of the year this year. So yeah, it's class.
Drop all your wide receivers when they're playing the Broncos. Drop them all. Stick them on the bench.
Just a quick one. Does the draft help your take on or your stock on Cortland Sutton? Because I think they only picked up Pat Bryant in the 3rd or the 4th.
And then a tight end in the 7th.
A tight end in the 7th. But they also do have Evan Ingram, which is worth pointing out. But
I think the Evan Ingram pickup is brilliant.
I like Ingram. I've always liked Ingram. And I think that's a great move.
It's a great landing spot.
Cortland Sutton, don't know about you, Ian, but Cortland Sutton I haven't really thought about much. But he feels like he's going to be in that sort of area. I haven't checked where he is in ADP at the moment, but he feels like he's in that sort of area where you go, well, he's the wide receiver 1. He could do a job. He could go on a hot streak for me. He's going to score touchdowns. I feel like I'll end up with him on quite a few of my teams this year.
Yeah, I think people will be overpaying for Cortland Sutton this year. I don't think he'll
Possibly.
fall to where I want to take him.
Because of last year
Yeah,
and him being the only option other than
essentially.
think the
Yeah, whereas
bonus,
Marvin Mims.
yeah, I think the bonus factor
There we
plays a
go.
part. Last year, people were a bit afraid of picking Sutton because they didn't know what Bonix was, and now that we've seen what Bonix is, I think there's a lot of people would be higher on Cortland Sutton. But I have to say, I am a lot higher on Sutton than I thought I was going to be. I've ended up drafting him in a redraft that I did, literally after the draft. I think I got
An
him fairly
actual
late.
redraft.
That's it. That's
An
early.
actual redraft. Yeah,
Doing a redraft in May.
That is
yeah.
early.
That's unhealthy. What happened to
No,
hold on?
no.
You were out of the three of us on this podcast. You were Mister. I need to cut down on my leagues this
I
year.
do need to
How
put
does doing a
down.
redraft in May help you cut down on your league?
Just allowed me to come up with a bit of a draft strategy. Is what I'm going with. But
Yeah, but
no,
when Alfred don't make the roster, you're like, what have I done?
well, there's that. There's always that. But
Well,
yeah, no,
going back to Ian's pet project of the NFL is like, what happens when the schedule comes out next week and all your players are on bye in week 12? So
Exactly. Exactly.
it's fine. That's what trades are for, as Ian would tell me.
Are you? We're bouncing around a little bit here in terms of this division. Are you worried about? Worried is the wrong word, Ian. Are you expecting any sort of regression from your boy Bowers on the basis that they've just brought in a top end running back, and we've talked about adding another wide receiver, Myers still being there. Like, I would expect Bowers' touchdowns to go up slightly, but are you worried that he's not going to get spammed as much? So in the PPR league, is he going to feel it?
Yeah, I mean, it's unsustainable to build a team based on the numbers that Brock Bowers was getting last year, because if you rely solely on that one player with that amount of targets and then he gets that game where he gets completely shut down, you're not going to win those games. So I think the Raiders have gone out, they've done exactly the right thing by building a bigger, better, more reliable all-round team. And yeah, I think Brock Bowers will regress, but only because the numbers that he posted last year were so phenomenal that there's absolutely no way, even if they gave him the same volume, I don't think there's any way he'll get anywhere near what he got last year.
Yeah.
I think
there's
touchdowns should go up. They should score more touchdowns this year. I think he only got about 6, didn't he? It wasn't like
his fantasy scoring was based on reception, because we played point per reception, and he was getting 10, 11 receptions a game and 100 yards. And he was scoring points without scoring touchdowns. And yeah, he didn't actually get that many, but he made up for it in volume. Whereas, I think you're right. You are going to see that swing more towards touchdowns in the red zone because they've got Johnson who can just run it.
Okay. And I'm putting you both on the spot a little bit here because we haven't prepped this. So I'll give you a minute to think about it. Well, not a minute. I'll give you like 15 seconds to think about it. But as you just mentioned, redraft. If we were doing redraft now, how many running backs would you take ahead of Ashton Jensen?
Or
Who are the four?
Bijan, Gibbs, CMC, Derrick Henry. But I'm huge on Derrick Henry, always have been. I'm trying to think of the other ones.
I mean,
I
you've
like Derrick Henry.
forgotten about Saquon Barkley, but I mean,
Oh yeah, Saquon.
If we push that to
Sorry.
the side for a second.
Sorry, yeah. Saquon, Derrick Henry. So that's what five I'd say. He for me is the one where you are almost confident that he is going to be RB1 and he will be right up there with 1,000 yards as a rookie.
So you're not taking ETN then? No.
Not
No, either of them. You're not taking either of them. No.
I think
think
you can say both of them and they won't get as many yards.
I think I'd take 3. I'd take 3 over him. I'd take Saquon, Bijan, and I would take Jahmyr Gibbs.
So you wouldn't take McCaffrey?
CMC.
Not over John C. No.
Okay, interesting.
What about you, Pete? You brought the question up, so I'm assuming you've got a theory on it.
Well, I mean, I did take him as the 4th running back off the board in a best ball that I've just done. Barkley went first, then it was Gibbs, then it was Robinson, Bijan, and then it was Aston Jency. And I don't know, and that was kind of where my question. I was like, it was between him and McCaffrey for me, and I think because it was best ball, I went with Jency because the thing with McCaffrey. And McCaffrey's going way too low at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if it changes as we get towards redraft for redraft season, because with best ball it's slightly different in that if he goes out injured, he's stuffed. Whereas if he goes out injured in redraft, you can replace him with someone. And there's no doubt that if McCaffrey plays 17 games, he will probably be the running back 1, I think. I don't like because they are going to run that offense through him and George Kittle. So the only question with him is, can he play 17 games? He does. For me, he doesn't play 17 games and not finish as number 1, or at least in the conversation going into the last few games as number 1.
That's kind of where I was at when I said I'd pick him over Jency. That is why I think if CMC is fit, and right now, according to reports, he's likely to start the season. That's why I would pick him over Jency, because you've got a proven stud over a potential stud, and if it's a redraft, that's why I'd go that. If it's dynasty, it's not even a question. Is Jency? That's just my opinion, if that makes sense.
Jency is, and the only thing that's annoying, well, not annoying me, the boring thing about rookie drafts at the moment is Jency is the 101. Doesn't matter what the format is, doesn't matter how you play, it's like Jency is the 101. Like at least last year, like depending on whether it was Superflex and stuff, there was Caleb Williams or there was Marv Harrison, and there was some debate around it. Whereas this year, it's like everyone's just pencil. You don't even need your guy who's 101 to pick, so we can pick for you if you want. You don't even need to be here, so it's a bit boring. But fair play to those people who probably finished last in their division.
Does make 1 or 2 really interesting, though. To be fair,
it is, yeah. That was our AFC summary in just over an hour. Thanks, lads. Enjoyed that. We will do the same.
I think if there's a lesson to be taken away from tonight's episode for all the listeners out there is log on to Sleeper and check if any idiot has sent you a trade pre-draft that they might now not want, and you hit accept immediately.
Excuse me. I've retracted that trade, so we're all good. We haven't even had time we didn't even have time to talk about H's trade. H never trades, and we convinced him to do a trade the other day. H is one of those people who always feels like he's being robbed, no matter what the person sends him in a trade. They could literally go, I'll take your Josh Allen and I'll give you Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, and they'd be like, no. But
yeah.
Why would I do that? I love Josh Allen.
He's so paranoid. H is so paranoid. He's like, what are you trying to do to me here?
Yeah, what do you know that I don't know?
I will have you know that I'm currently in a deep trade discussion with somebody in relation to our main dynasty league. So, yeah, I've got one. I am trading.
That'll be my brother then. Who? No, because I woke up this morning to 2 notifications that he'd done that heart thing that he likes 2 of my players. I was like, in the middle of the night, so I was like, you need to get some sleep.
Did you text it? Did you text him and call him a pervert?
No, but I should have done.
Stop liking my players, you absolute pervert.
I also did a trade in the JMD. Boring trade, but it was a trade.
What was that?
The JMD JTT Dynasty. I swapped Quinn Johnson for Christian Watson, just because we both had like we yeah, it was a boring trade, but it was because we both had like double up on receivers for that team. So yeah,
Isn't
Two
Christian Watson out?
receivers that are both finished.
yeah, yeah.
I don't want to drop this guy, and you don't want to drop that guy. So how about we trade them and then drop them?
Yeah,
that's literally the conversation that I had. But yeah,
thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Those of us who are tuning in on YouTube, we appreciate the support as always. We will do the same with the NFC next time, probably next week. Like, subscribe, and share as always. And follow us on all the socials and keep listening and tell your friends.